Hey guys, welcome to my video. Today we're gonna talk about operators in C# language. So there are actually basic operators, as you know, in math. For example, addition, like that, subtraction, division, multiplication, and also modulus. This percentage is modulus. So now I'm gonna show you one by one all of them. Yeah, right line. For example, with console.writeline, we're gonna output something. I'm gonna show you how to use addition. You write first number and the second number, and between the addition score, as you know in math classes, and then let's try this. So as you can see, it's 35. So you can use addition like that, or you can use with variables also. A equals 12, where B equals 12, 13 maybe. And then, for example, we can store the value of at some of them, var summa of A plus B. And then we can print here 25. So that's how works the addition. And what about subtraction? Yeah, can use subtraction also. Let's come them. Example here, var result A minus B. Console dot write line result. Yep, and let's print that. As you can see, it's -1 because 12 minus 13. Yeah, so that's subtraction. And what about multiplication? Yeah, about multiplication. So var result be just A multiplying by B, and console dot write line. Oh, let's do something like that. Var result equal A times B. Yeah, and something like that. As you can see here, 12 times 13 is 156. Yeah, and division here, division also works. It's 0 because it would be 0 point something something like that. So that's all of about the basic operations. And as I said before, there's a modules operator, and it takes the remaining part of the value. For example, say you have var num1 8 and var num2 maybe 6. Yeah, 6. So whenever we divide 8 by 6, we can't divide by like integer. Yes, it would have some floating points, but in that situation, if we divide 8 modulus 6, we get the remainder part, as you can see here, 2. You can see here, so it only shows the remaining part. So we can use to identify even or odd numbers. For example, if it's divisible by 2 and it equals to 0, we can know it's even number. Yes, you can see it's true. So we're gonna talk about this kind of things later, and that's all about main operators. And there's a order of operations, as you know from the math classes. Yeah, if the operations are stacked like that, for example, int num1 something, or just int example, 5 times 3, no, 537 times 8 divided 2, something like that. We don't add 5 to 7 first. We actually divide by 8 to 2 and then multiply by 7 and then plus 5. So if you want to make this operation first, you need to put parentheses as the math. So it's just math actually. And then incrementation and decrementation, actually compound compound operators. So for example, say you have a integer number 1 and it's 6, yeah. So if you write something like that, 6, no, num1 plus 1, yeah, num1 plus 1, and then as you can see, on the first line it's showing 6 plus 1, that's exactly 7, and then the next line shows num1, so that means it's not updated. I mean, whenever you add some value, it just shows the added value, but actually in memory it does not change. In order to change this value in memory, we need to do something like that: num1 plus equals 1. So in that situation, our num1 num gets 1 and then adds upside of that, so it's gonna be incremented by 1. So you can see from the result, as you can see, it's now 8, because in that situation num1 becomes 7. So 7 plus 1, 8, and its actual result is 7. So it's something like that. For example, num1 equal num1 plus 1. It's something like that, but it's a shortcut version, so they are all same. And you can use any operation, for example, multiplication, like that, multiplication, or something another something like that. As you can see, we multiply by 2 and it would be 12, and then add 1, 13, and then add 1 again, 14, and actual value is 13. So you can use division, multiplication, or anything you want. That's it. And incrementation and decrementation is something like that. Whenever you want to add only one, not some other values, for example 2, 3, or any other value, but only one, you can use something like that, like shortcut, like that. So in that situation, console dot write line num1. Yep. Oh, .NET Run. Yep, as you can see, 7, because it's incremented by 1, but it actually literally means num1 plus equals 1, or num1 equals num1 plus 1, something like that. So it's very short cut version, only works for whenever you increment by 1 or decrement, or for example, you can write something like that also. But the problem here, not a problem, but the thing you should be careful. For example, if you write something like that, num1 plus plus, yeah. So you think what output we're gonna get? You think we can get the 7, but actually we get 6. As you can see, 6. But what about if we print again this number? 6 and 7. As you can see, it means it differs from order. For example, whenever you put the plus plus before the after the num1, that means it adds after the we outputted the number 1. So it first outputs the 6, as you can see here, and then increments by 1. And then in the next line you can see the increment version, namely 7. But what if we want we want to see the version that's first incremented and then the output? In that situation, you can do something like that. In that situation, it first increments and then prints the output. As you can see, it's 7 now. So order matters. Don't forget this kind of things and be careful in that situations. So the next thing I want to cover is the comparison operators. For example, we learned about Boolean data type, yes, true and false. And whenever we compare, we actually get the Boolean data type. For example, Boolean is greater is greater, or example, is adult, yeah, is adult. And for to be adult, your age, for example, int no var age console dot read line, yeah. And actually it would be string So actually, whenever we read the information from readline, it would be on string tab. So you can convert it something like that. Int input put age convert to inserted to input, something like that, and age, and it would be in integer type. And then you can say is adult, age should be greater than or equal to 18. So that means equal, it can be equal to 18 in order to we get the is adult true value. So we're gonna console dot write line is adult. Yeah, and let's run our program. So it's waiting for our input. For example, we say 17, yeah, false. So we are not adult. So what about if we enter 18? True. True, and we are adult, it shows. But what about if I delete this equation? So it should be greater than 18, not equal. So in that situation, if we enter the 18, it shows false, because it should not include 18, it should be greater than 18. And there's a other comparison operators, something like that. For example, age 8 equals equals, and please be careful the difference between equals and equals, because equals is used when applying or storing some value, assigning some value to variable, but equals checks whether the left side of the equals and right side are equal. So whenever it's equals, that means our age should be exactly 18 in order to get true value. So in that situation, whenever we write, for example, 19, we get false. But whenever we write 18, we get true. So it's something like that. I think you got that. And then we have less than, equal, or less. You can try these kind of things. It actually some logic. So you need to know these kind of things. These are really important. And then the last thing I want to talk about comparison operators is not equal. For example, it's saying if age is not 18, it's gonna be true. So let's try that. So we can type anything we want, it would be true. But what if you write 18, it would be false. It's not true, not equals, something like that. And uh, logical operations. For example, we can say is adult and have license. Yes, has the license. We can say it's true. Yeah, and age should be greater than equal 18. Yeah. And we should output, for example, bool output equals is adult and has license. So and means this symbol means and operation, and means the output would be true if both of them would be true. For example, and the output is true when both are true. Got me? Or there can be another situations also. For example, something like that. Another boolean something. For example, true. It should be all of them true in order to output true, because it's AND operation. So let's try the code on code here, and we're gonna enter the console.writeLine output. We should output the writeLine. Yeah, like that. Okay. So we're gonna enter our age and true, because we got the is adult true, and then has license true, and is adult and has license and true. So all of them are true. In that situation, output would be true. But what if I make the has license false? Yeah, we don't have license. And I'm gonna insert my age 18 false, because I don't have license. And in that case, I'm going to teach you new operator, call it OR operator. So This is called OR operator. OR operator's working principle is any of them, any of them can be true. For example, is adult or has license, and it causes output to be true. So that means any of them is enough to be true in order to make the output true. So, for example, has license is false, yeah. But in the AND situation, if we are 18 or if we are over 18 or 18 and has no license, we got false. But in that situation, we are 18 and has no license, but it worked because its adult is true. So it means at least one should be true in order to make the output true. That's it. And there's a not operator. I show it with not equal and also something like that. For example, has license, yes, and we can do something like that. And has license. If we print this, we are gonna get false, yeah, false. But what if put this operation? This operator call it not, not, and it inverts. For example, if it's true, it makes it false. If it's false, it makes it true. So we don't have license, and we are saying not has license. Let's see the output. It's true now. As you can see, we can convert true or false to opposite side. For example, we can say, for example, 18 greater than 15. Yeah, it's true. 18 greater than 15. Yes, it's true. And what if we make it something like that? 15 not. And in that situation, it's gonna get false. I think you got the idea. And let me share some of the basic examples with what we've learned so far. For example, these kind of things. As you can see, there are operations here, and let's see the outputs. For A is 10, B is 3, and we're gonna add them. It's gonna be 13, and subtract them, it's gonna be 7, and multiply them, it's gonna be 30, and divide them. And I want to note one thing here. Whenever you divide integer type variables, it's gonna get just integer type output. For example, in that situation, you may think 10 divided by 3 would be 3 point something 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 like that, yes. But if you look at the output, it's 3 because the type of our value is integer. So what if we make it double? And if we make it double, let's see the output. In that situation, it's something like 3.3333. Yeah, so be careful in that situation. For example, console.writeLine 7 divided by 2. Yeah, you know the answer. It would be 3.5. But if you run that, compiler sees it as integer and it just returns the 3 because it's in integer type. To make it more precise, you should make it like that to show it's double. Like that, 3.5. And if you want to see the outputs type, dot get type. Yep. And as you can see, system.double. But in that situation, it's just integer. Yes, system int 32. So, and order of operations are important. Don't forget about that. And for example, I'm going to show one example for logic operators like that, something like that. Yes, for example, it's raining is true and has umbrella false. Console.write is raining and has umbrella. For example, it's raining and has umbrella. Think about it. It's raining and I have no umbrella. That means I'm gonna be kind of under the rain. I'm gonna get wet. Yes, it's something like that. So on the AND operation, it's gonna be false because for AND to make the output true, both of the operators should be true. But in that situation, one of them is at least one. At least if the one of them are false, the entire example would be false because it's AND operation. But conversely, in OR operator, at least one of them should be true to make the operation true. So you can see here outputs true, false, and false. And in that situation, it's not operation and it's raining. It's true, but by conversing it with no, it's returning false. So at the end of the video, I'm gonna give you some mini challenge. Write a program that takes two numbers and prints whether the first is greater than, less than, or equal to the second using comparison operators and console.writeline. So see you later. Take care.